Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret with My Sports Dietitian, and I welcome you into our webinar this evening. Thank you for coming. And as you arrive, if you will, go ahead and put your name and your name and where you're from in the chat. So you can just give us a little bit of a heads up. If you're joining us live, let us know where you're joining from and a little bit about you. So you can tell us your name, what you do, if you're a coach, a dietitian, athletic trainer, just give us a little bit of information about who our audience might be this evening, and we will get started in just a moment. Oh my God. Okay. Just give me 1 minute and we will get started. Just want to make sure my technology is working correctly. Okay, so just want to make sure that everyone can see me out there. So if you will, please just give me a heads up if you can see the presentation. So it looks like I'm on the on my end, at least I'm on the notes tab, but hopefully you've got the full screen. So I'm trying to bounce out of that and just get started here in just 1 minute. For some reason, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty here, but that's okay. Just want to make sure everything's running smoothly over there on your end. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. Your chat's okay. I see somebody's saying their chat is disabled. So let me just go ahead and see if I can fix that. Okay, let's see. Can you see it now? I saw your chat come through, so not quite sure what's happening there. Still disabled. Okay, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Make sure I've got everything on. It looks like it's on my end, so I'm not quite sure why we're not seeing it on. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you can you can hear me at least. That's a good sign. I'm not quite sure because I can certainly see you. I'm not quite sure why those chat previews are not showing up, but the Q&A is coming through, so I'll keep that up and I will be able to at least see questions, and you can certainly answer live if needed. So we may have the chat disabled and we just have the Q&A open. That would make sense. So if you have any questions, you can always post them in the chat and I mean in the Q&A, and that will be great. So I'll keep checking back in as we move through things, and certainly at the end, we leave time for questions. So, well, my name is Margaret, and I'm going to be your hostess this evening. We love having our Wednesday night webinars and having an opportunity to interact with our colleagues and also a lot of our clients and the people that we work with. So tonight we are actually talking about baseball and fueling for baseball tournaments. And this can really apply to any sport, but we're really going to be talking about how to wrap it around a baseball tournament, as that's a very challenging time for a lot of athletes in this particular sport at this time of year, when baseballs really getting geared up and we start seeing those double headers and those games where, they have multiple games a day and things going on. So I am currently the founder and president of Eternal Fuel. That's my own company. I'm actually just getting that going, but that was a big transition for me this year. And I have worked 2 seasons with the Chicago White Sox in minor league baseball. I've worked directly with the major league dietitian and also the major league coaches, but I had 3 teams in Charlotte, Kannapolis, North Carolina, and then in Winston-Salem. So I've worked with those minor league affiliates and had 2 seasons there with them. Big fan of baseball, and also just being able to work with athletes in that sport in multiple different levels. So that is kind of my background. I've also worked in collegiate athletics with Western Carolina University. I was a nutrition faculty there, but I also worked with our athletics program, doing team nutrition talks and also one-on-ones through the campus health services position that I held there. And then I've been in really a very well-rounded dietitian in all sports throughout my career. So I've had an opportunity to work with all age groups throughout the life cycle, from high school and, going into collegiate and then pre-professional and professional sports. I personally was a volleyball player, a 400-meter runner, and I grew up dancing and minored in dance in college and still enjoy ballroom dancing. So that's been a big part of my sports development as well. So we are going to move on and kind of talk a little bit more about our topic here this evening. So what we're really going to learn this evening is how to prepare for tournaments, what to eat before, during, and between games, and then how to refuel and recover afterward, how to really plan for easy snacking, hydration tips, and ways to fuel yourself right off the field so that you can perform best when you're in play. And there is a lot of, components to this. So we're really looking at preparation, planning, and how to do that, what types of foods are going to be optimal, what kinds of fuel are going to be easiest and most well suited for the time that you have to eat and the travel that you may have as well. So obviously hydration is key to any athletic performance, but certainly in the summertime and in these times of the year when we have high heat and humidity, it's even more essential to make sure that we're well hydrated. So in preparation for a tournament, we want to make sure that you're packing dry snacks and really thinking about how you're packing the night before. So planning is really key to eating well. And that's gonna be really across the board in anything that you do. So always trying to get some good ideas and write those things down on paper. We also have a great tool, the Eat to Win app, that can help with meal prep and planning. And there's a free version of the app, and a lot of our clients are actually using it. So that's another really great way to stay tapped into really good meal planning tips and things that are going to be beneficial for athletes. But some examples are listed here, dry foods, anything that you can grab and go. Protein powders obviously work well during travel and on the road. And make quick, easy, shakeable, nutritious beverages. And you can mix them with other types of foods as well. But anything that's in a packet, but also a whole food, right? So we don't want to encourage a lot of processed foods, but anything that you can get that's kind of already packaged in a wholesome form is a good idea, because not only is it shelf stable, but it travels well and it's easy to consume. So anything that makes your job easier is well worth it. And then we always want to think about warmer temperatures, because if it's something that's going to melt, obviously that's not going to be really palatable. So think about things that you can use that are going to, mix well with dried food instead of chocolate. Stick with what you know works for you. Don't try to introduce anything new right before you go into play. It's really important to practice your strategies in training, and that is really going to be the best advice that I could give as a sports dietitian, is to really stick with what you trial and what you train doing. And you can train your body to adapt to a lot of things. So it's really important to try those things out during practice. Now, in preparation for a tournament, we always want to be conscious of fluids, always making sure that we're well hydrated. We can tell if we're well hydrated by the color of our urine. And this seems like, to me, after doing it all these years, like, okay, this is a no-brainer, but it really isn't. I've seen so many athletes struggle with this particular part of their nutrition, and baseball was like, it really blew my mind when I came into the division that I did, and was working with these guys, and I watched them practice all day, and like they would go for hours without, they would drink a lot of water, but their snacking and their carbohydrate intake during that time would always be limited. And then, just the long days that they would have on the field, and the hot and the humidity, and then they're fully dressed out. And it was just amazing that, they weren't hydrating just consistently. And really, when we say that, we're talking about, drinking, of course, the night before, like we see here, and then drinking at least 8 hours, 8 ounces of water when you wake up, but also thinking about how you're doing that throughout the day, especially during your training and your tournaments. Having an empty shaker cup is always a good idea. This is going to allow you to mix in protein powder with ease and conveniently, and you can mix it with water, but you can also mix it with other fluids. So you also always want to make sure, especially if you're in a league that is, using supplement safety guidelines, and, if you're having any sports testing, that you make sure that you have a protein powder that is athlete approved. These are some of the organizations that we recommend here, that really focus on supplements for drug-free. And this makes sure, it really ensures that your supplements are not contaminated with any ingredients that could cause problems if you have to test. So an SF certified for sport is the one that we use primarily in the pre-professional and professional level. But as you can tell, there are some really good organizations out there that you can rely on, and that give you really credible products. So in preparation, we always want to make sure that you're making an easy breakfast, that's something that you can grab and go early, especially if you have early games starting in the mid-morning. So things that you can grab easily would be some type of, nice protein sandwich, like an egg sandwich, or a burrito that has a little bit of carbohydrate with the bread or the burrito. And then also fruit, which is also a carbohydrate. Maybe some overnight oats that you've prepared that are wholesome, and or smoothies. And these are all really great options that are going to be composed of, carbs, proteins, and fat, but, lean sources of protein and plant-based fat. And that's really kind of the direction that we would aim for you to go nutritionally, but then also to make sure you're getting enough energy in terms of calories, and balance in terms of the amount of macronutrient that you're eating at one time. Before games, it's always a great idea to make sure you're getting in there 3 to 4 hours ahead of your competition. And this really aligns with our, our preparation before any type of athletic event, but certainly it's hard. It's a hard thing to really, for people to think about, especially when they have practice or training early in the morning. They may not have really historically been a good breakfast eater or a good morning eater. And this is an area that we really hone in on a lot because it starts the day, right? This is what really determines how you're going to feel from the time that you step out the door to the time you finish up. And if you get behind the 8 ball, beforehand, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball the whole time. And it's going to be very noticeable when you start to fatigue early. And it usually goes back to how you're doing in the very early onsets of your nutritional training. And, baseball is one of those sports that's just really depending on a lot of power and agility, strategy and, concentration, focus, a quick movement, reaction time. And while no, it's not like you're out running an endurance event all day, these factors all built in together really require a baseball player to be well nourished and to do that consistently throughout the day. Because, I have witnessed firsthand the amount of effort that goes into their play and their training, especially. So really thinking about beforehand and getting into the training habit of eating 3 to 4 hours ahead of time is really going to determine how you do when you go into those tournament days. So including those complex carbohydrates with this amount of time ahead of your play, it's going to give you time to digest those complex carbs. As we get closer in, it makes it a little harder for your body to digest them well. So the farther out you are, you can include more complex foods, again, leaner protein and healthy fats. And these are some examples, again, of some good options. Then as you get closer into the game, you want something that's more easily digestible. So you don't want to have a lot of fat and fiber in the meal. Fat and fiber take a longer time to digest, and so does protein. So carbohydrates are usually going to be fully digested in your body within a couple hours, could be 30 minutes to an hour and a half later. But fat and protein can take a significant amount of time longer, and even up to 4 hours with protein and up to 8 to 12 hours with fat. So we want to keep those macronutrients on the lower end. And also things that are easily digestible means they're not as complex types of carbohydrates. Like you see here, it might be white toast as opposed to whole grain or high, whole wheat. And that's going to be a quicker digesting carbohydrate. And then you'll see things like fruits that are going to be quicker and easier for your body to process. And then you see low fat milk as opposed to, a 2% or something that's a little bit more fat heavy. So, just keeping light on the protein if we're getting close in. And if we're talking about tournament play, we want to have that 3 to 4 hour ahead of time. And then we also want to have a light snack, going in to the game that we're playing or in the morning. So having a couple of things planned going into that tournament one. Between games and during, we want to keep the carbs more simple. You see fruits listed here, easily digestible carbohydrates that are not high in fiber, but that are going to, get into your bloodstream pretty quickly and also provide that energy that you need on the spot. So again, our pre-fuel is really going to pack our muscles full of carbs and give our muscles that energy. Carbohydrates are stored in muscle. So the more that we eat those types of foods ahead of time, the better prepared our muscles are going to be to perform when we get into the game. The types of foods that we're talking about eating closer in or between games are definitely going to be things that are going to be quicker for your body to process and easier for your body to move through those energy channels as it demands when we are actually on the go. And then the protein and carbs between, as you can see, protein shakes work great. We always like to combine the protein and the carbohydrate together in appropriate amounts because protein is helping, with muscle recovery, but it's also helping with satiety. So that's the one thing that helps fill us up and keeps us from feeling hungry. So it is important to keep it readily available. It also helps a lot with muscle metabolism as when energy demands are high. And then easy snack ideas, think things that you can grab and go, things that are going to be, again, stay in your bag and don't need to be refrigerated or frozen or perishable, in other words. So things that we can really keep handy. And you see things like rice cake bites, those are little nice, components of carbohydrate. You can see lean beef jerkies, things like that, and things that are going to be easy to access. So after the game is really when we're talking about recovery, we're talking about getting a good balance of, comprehensive meals and really having good amount of protein, nice whole grains, veggies. And we see here, we have some good sources of high protein, dairy down there, which is, clearly an option for people. If you're not a dairy person, there's all kinds of ways to get that otherwise. And we love to be able to kind of help people, especially inside the app. You can always ask the sports dietitian. If you're a premium user, you have access to those types of questions and things that might be good options for you. And we have lots of really great meal plans enclosed in there to help athletes understand not only how much energy is in the meal, but, really seeing how to combine foods for optimal performance. You get a lot of hydration in fruits and vegetables as well. And so that's why you're really going to see a lot of those options kind of, sprinkled in here, because you also get fluid when you're eating those plant-based foods. And that's another reason that we strongly encourage them. And, I know I was always challenged trying to get those veggies in with the guys, but it's one of those things that they just need to learn, that these are things, there's reasons, right? They have a lot of antioxidants, a lot of recovery nutrients in them, things that are going to really help with muscle recovery and also, with inflammation. So can help with injury prevention, especially when you're in high use sports where you're doing repetitive movements a lot. And, when you're talking about pitching and catching and, bending up and down and hitting and, running around the bases and sliding, those are all movements that with time, repetition can cause injury and overuse. And so we really want to stay focused on recovery as a way to get those vital nutrients that are going to help with inflammation and recovery in a way that, we think kind of outside the box with respect to what those foods actually provide. After games, this is just another example. So you can see the whole wheat pasta here. You can see instead of eating a, really high fat type of pork sausage, we can use chicken or turkey sausage links, which is a leaner version of that. Also quick fix, it's nothing that takes a significant amount of time. And then of course, chicken being a lean protein. You see the peppers in the zucchini. Red sauce is another source of good tomatoes. We have lots of phytochemicals in here, which are those plant-based chemicals that are going to be really, really critical for getting that antioxidant concentration. And then adding a little bit of fat in, right? Now, Alfredo sauce is going to have a little butter and cream. It's going to have a little bit of fat, and that's not a bad thing. So adds extra calories, makes up for some energy, and it's in a small enough amount that it's not going to cause any major issues or concerns with respect to health. And then, of course, with hydration, we're talking about this throughout the day. I mean, it's not something that we just tack on here at the end, but it's good to put it here on one slide where you can see like the relative information here being, okay, we want to make sure we have at least 16 ounces ahead of time, 8 ounces, 15 minutes before the game. We drink 4 to 8 ounces every 15 minutes. And this is where I see people lose a lot of ground, is this every 15 minutes, kind of drilling it in. But really thinking about drinking consistently, every 15 to 20 minutes and getting that 4 to 8 ounces of water or fluid. And after the game, we definitely want to switch to a sports drink that has some electrolytes in it. Not only we're making up some well-needed calories and energy with some sports drinks, but we're also getting the electrolytes with the potassium, sodium, and even chloride. So you see our two probably most popular sports drinks listed here. And then this is an example of a tournament day. So game 1, 2, and 3, you see 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 4 p.m. And you see these kind of strategies kind of sprinkled throughout, which is having those breakfast meals, ideally 1 to 2 hours ahead of time, having a snack if you're feeling hungry or needing more energy. And then at game 2 at 11, again, you're trying to look for those small snacks that you can have, especially if you didn't eat well during the first game. Making sure that you're kind of making up for that nutritional need at that point. Your muscles are going to get depleted, as time goes on. And so that leads to early fatigue, performance decrements, and then harder recovery. So as long as you're staying on top of it kind of throughout the day, you should see better results in general. So this is just a little case study. We have a couple of these just to look, but this is a 16-year-old. He's playing a doubleheader. He's with his high school varsity team. The first game starts at 9. He has to be at the field by 8. The team's going to get lunch after the first 2 games before the last game at 4. And he's not sure what to eat before or during, but he knows he needs something easy when he wakes up. And he feels tired if he eats a big meal too close to the game. So what are some things that, Ryan should aim to eat before the game, and if you're in the Q&A, you can kind of list some things there. We can talk about them. And, what are some things that you might suggest that Ryan get and maybe in what amount and what constitution? Why could he feel tired? Why would he feel tired eating a big meal before his game? What's going to cause him to feel fatigued if he's eating too much and he's not getting enough? Maybe at certain times of the day, but then he's eating too much at one time. And then what snacks could he keep in his bag to sustain his energy during games? And what are some things that he might want to keep available? And these are all questions to really be mindful of. What should he aim to eat before his first game? You really want to think about, well, Ryan, what time are you getting up? And that early morning start is so important. And, we talked about that 3 to 4 hour time frame, more complex carbs, a little bit more protein, and having that plant-based fat. And then as you get closer in, making sure that you're eating quicker digesting carbohydrates, that you're not consuming as much complex carbs or as much fat, and just lighter protein. So instead of eating 20 to 30 grams of protein, we might cut it back to 10. Instead of eating 2 servings of fat, we cut it back to 1. And so really, if we're cutting our time frame in half, we're cutting the amount of food that we're eating in half as well, especially with the protein and the fiber and the fat content. Why would he feel tired eating a big meal before his game? Because, he's full. And when our stomach is full of food, the blood flow is going to our stomach to digest our food. And it's harder to get our muscles activated with blood flow when our stomach is full. So we really try to moderate that, going in, and, it could really lead to someone feeling less fueled, because, at that point in time, your body's having to kind of prioritize, right, where it's going to shunt this blood flow. And obviously, when we get up and going, we need that oxygen out to our working muscles, and we need to be able to get going right away. So what kinds of things could he keep in his bag? We talked about a few of those things. If there are any further questions about it, I'll be happy to answer it. And then case study number 2, we've got Nathan. He usually wakes up at 8:30. He eats his breakfast at 10, and his first tournament game's at 11:30. He's 20 years old. His second game is at 2, and he hasn't eaten anything since breakfast. He's had 2 Gatorades since the first game, but now he feels tired and sluggish. The team's going to grab a meal after the second game, but Nathan is hungry now. So how can he optimize his meal time to correlate with his tournament schedule? Why is he tired and sluggish, even though he's had breakfast and Gatorades? And what should Nathan do next tournament day to avoid feeling hungry and tired? And again, if you have anything to share in the answer, then certainly we can I can go ahead and answer those as well. But if you have any feedback, I love to always hear that. So how can he optimize his mealtime? We got to get him to get out of bed. And this is this is so critical important, but this is sleep, right? So if an athlete's not sleeping well, then they're sleeping late. And unfortunately, this is a huge component of performance is sleep. And I love this case study because it really kind of hones in on that. And practicing good sleep hygiene, getting in line with your circadian rhythm, really thinking about, your go to sleep, wake up time. It's really important, to make sure. And that is something that I really want to make sure that we, talk about is staying on top of our sleep schedule, because if we're not sleeping well or we're going to bed too late, and this is very, very common with baseball players, then you're going to have that factor where they're not getting out of bed on time. So when they finish up those evening games, we want to get them, showered into bed and then try to get them up in time, especially during tournament play. Why is he sluggish even though he's had breakfast and Gatorades? Well, we've got this situation where he's had breakfast and he's had Gatorades, but he's still tired. And this probably has a lot to do with his sleep, but it probably also has a lot to do with the fact that he hasn't fueled his muscles properly going into this whole situation. So we really want to make sure that we're maximizing our glycogen stores and that we are not, cheating our muscles out of the fuel that they can, number one, handle and store, but number two, that they need. And then what should he do to avoid feeling hungry and tired? Try to get up, fuel early in the day and get going. And that's really going to help him out a great deal. So just some action steps and review. We're getting ready to finish up. I know we're running a few minutes over. I thank you for your patience. I know a few people said they had to drop off, and no problem. We've recorded it and you can always come back and watch it again. But for big meals before and after games, focus on carbs, lean protein, and healthy fats. Keep your dry snacks and protein powder in your game bag. Hydrate before, during, and after games properly. Always focus on those carbohydrates and proteins and eating them in combination together to sustain energy, and avoid those high-fat meals between games. These are just some frequently asked questions that we hear a lot from the baseball guys. So how should I time my meals? What are some easy snacks I can pack if I only have a limited amount of time in the dugout? Why could I feel slower during my first game compared to my second? What should I eat before this early morning game if I don't feel hungry in the morning? And how much water should I drink to stay hydrated? And we just want to make sure that, again, we've talked about timing, we've talked about some easy snacks. And you're always going to feel slower during that first game if you haven't slept well, potentially, or you haven't fueled well. And so hydration can also lead to feeling really sluggish. So make sure that those things are things that you're really focused on, if those are some of the symptoms that you're having during that early morning period. If you don't feel hungry early in the morning, try to stick as much as you can with smoothies and fluids and things that aren't going to create a lot of volume or feeling like you have a lot of volume in your stomach, but giving you still some nourishing components to fuel well. And then we talked about water, but that's going to vary depending on the person, sweat rates, and different components. So again, talk to your sports dietitian or reach out to us and let us know how we can help. For more information on how to fuel for baseball, you can go ahead and scan the QR code. This is really going to help kind of lead you right into some of our resources that we have and things that we can do to kind of help. So go ahead and give us some information about that. And then we just really thank you for your participation and hope that we see you again on our Wednesday night call. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you down the road. All right. Take care.